Hi, everyone. I'm Jerry Hirden, Alliance Marketing Manager for Cherry Beakert, and joining me today is Matt Illuzzi, a Director for Cherry Beakert's Digital Advisory Practice, and we have Steve Mitchell, who works with Strategic Accounts for Alteryx. How you two doing?
Hey, Jerry. Thanks for having us.
Pretty good, Jerry. Thanks for having me.
So, Matt, tell me a little bit about your background.
Sure thing. I'm a CPA and an accountant by trade, but I've been dealing in data for the last 20 or so years, data analyst at big companies, and have been into startups. So I run the gamut of companies and struggling with data and unlocking it.
Steve, what about you?
Well, I'm a strategic sales manager here with Alteryx and focused just on the Alteryx Analytics Cloud. Based in the Bay Area, most of my career always been involved in data analytics. And so really looking forward to the discussion today.
Thanks so much for the intros, guys. It's a pleasure having you today. So we're going to discuss the state of analytics, what you should be thinking about when it comes to the cloud, and what are the best ways to get started on your analytics journey. So let's tip this off. Matt, this first question is for you. What is the state of analytics?
Thanks, Jerry. It's a good question to start with. I think there's a lot of discussion around analytics, and we hear about it, in the news, in the media, on TV. There's commercials every day about data this and data that, and I think there's a huge gap in terms of where companies want to be and where they are currently. Especially in the mid-market, there's companies that just don't have the capabilities to get to where they want to be, and I think that gap is about 90 to 95% of companies there want to be data-driven and know that there's a need to be data-driven, but only 15 to 20% of them currently are at that 5 out of 5, right? So there's this huge window of opportunity for the companies that are doing well to continue to grow and excel. And there's opportunities for the companies that aren't doing it, that they're going to fall back and fall behind. So I think there's just a huge opportunity, and being able to manage it in the cloud, as we'll get to here, will be where the companies that succeed, that's how they're going to do it.
And Steve, what's your perspective on this?
Well, I agree with Matt. Everybody recognizes that they need analytics and they want it. But probably less than 15% actually have those capabilities and are able to execute on that need. So it is very difficult, because if you're not focused exclusively on trying to build an analytics function within your organization, it tends to be limited just to individual contributors. So whether you like it or not, analytics is happening in your business today. It may be happening with somebody just sitting, building reports in their own Excel sheet on their laptop. Or you may have small teams where people are being innovative and pulling data together. I think the challenge is how do you institute that kind of behavior across all of the organization so that you're all driving towards a common goal. Usually I like to see analytics as supporting some kind of function in a business. So either that's to, acquire more customers or increase satisfaction or find inefficiencies in the business. These are usually good rallying points that people can focus on, and then, try and figure out, what is missing from their own analytics capabilities to achieve those goals.
That's very insightful. Appreciate that answer. Steve, this question's for you. So why is there a gap in how middle market companies manage data?
Well, the gap really starts, I think, for a lot of mid-sized organizations is, depends obviously on how old they are as a company. You tend to find the younger companies today, anything under 5 to 6 years, usually have pretty good analytics infrastructure, just because they're starting from, a higher baseline. Whereas you find an organization that's been around for a while struggles, just because they may have old information systems, they may have practices that they're carrying from, over a decade. But probably the 3 biggest points and areas that I see companies struggling with is just a simple lack of resources. A mid-sized organization doesn't always have the same resources as a large organization who can invest directly within analytics. In addition to the resources, there's just expertise. Hiring talent is competitive, especially in the data analytics space right now. I think most organizations recognize that analytics and data is a differentiator when you're competing against someone else. And so having the right people who can drive that is incredibly valuable. And then the third reason is really around focus. It's hard to have an analytics approach if you're not really focused, if you just leave it up to individuals. All that means is you'll have varying degrees of maturity where maybe finance will be very, very good at analytics, but then you get to marketing and it's a little bit disorganized. You really have to have that focus across all of the organization and have IT support those different parts of the business to basically achieve what they're trying to do with analytics.
Yeah, and to echo what Steve just said, I think there's a tendency for people in organizations to just continue to do things the way they've always done them, right? We run this report every week, every month, every quarter, because this is the way we always did it. And they're using information that may be stale, may not be relevant. They're running reports that people aren't reading, and it's tough to get off the wheel. You just keep running on that wheel, and hitting the reset button can seem overwhelming. Like, why do we even run this report? Why do we do this? What information are we trying to gather? So taking that step back and taking a breath and being able to look from the outside in is usually where you can get some help. And it's really just the kind of inertia of just keep going and going and running in circles to do the same reporting. And that's not going to work, because there's just so much data out there, and every month, every year, there's more and more data that not needs to get analyzed, but can be analyzed. And if we're not analyzing it as a company, then you're going to get passed by companies that are.
Mm-hmm.
So why the cloud? Why now?
Well, I get asked this question, pretty much every day. I do represent the Alteryx Analytics Cloud and have been involved in cloud for most of my career. And one of the interesting things about cloud is that it is a significantly deflationary technology. So meaning that it lowers the overall costs of adopting certain types of technology, and also lowers all of the overhead of managing that kind of technology. So if you take, an example of something like Gmail or, Salesforce or a Marketo, or really any kind of cloud service, the costs to actually first subscribe and sign up to these services and then actually manage them is really quite low. And so when you compare, a mom and pop shop starting today versus maybe 30 years ago, you can be up and running with a digital organization in less than a day and have all the technology and the resources you need at your fingertips at greatly reduced cost. And so that's really where we're going with Alteryx. With Alteryx today, if you've been one of our customers for the last decade, you'll know there's some responsibility that comes with owning the technology. You have to maintain the software. You need the infrastructure to actually run everything locally within your environment. But with the shift to cloud, what you gain is the ability to access everything through a browser, not have to maintain any servers, not have to upgrade any software over time. And you really gain the benefit of scale. So if you are trying to enable a self-service analytics initiative within the business, it's as easy as just creating a login for people, and they can start collaborating and working with each other directly from the browser.
Yeah, and the companies that aren't doing this are going to get left behind. If you're managing things in an old school fashion, the companies that are adopting and adjusting are going to get the talent. People coming out of school don't want to learn legacy systems. They want to learn things that will further their career. And this is where we're going. And this is, it's not, AI is not going backwards.
So Matt, you just touched on what are the risks of not managing data in the cloud. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, certainly. I think that if you're not managing your data you can manage, as long as you're analyzing your data, there are a lot of ways to do it. Being in the cloud makes you more flexible and scalable. So the risk of not doing it is that you have to continue to upgrade, and you need to be the latest and greatest. So, upgrading your servers, upgrading the desktop technology. If you're doing that and you have people that are managing it, that's great. But if not, you're going to end up with people at different versions, and that can be problematic. You're not going to be at the top of the forefront of the technology here. So making sure that and then security is really the place that I think the cloud really brings. As we're all remote, everybody's in different locations now. It's not, you can't just hire somebody where your office is. You can hire people all over the world. And if you're sharing data, if you're analyzing data in Excel and sending it in an email, you're exposing all of your data to lots of risks. Employees leave, they can take it with them. You don't know what they're doing with it, if they can, take it off their laptop and put it wherever they want. So the security of the data becomes tantamount here. It's very, very important, and the cloud takes that worry away.
Yeah, I think it's whether you're on the IT, on the infrastructure and the management operation side, or whether you're on the business side where you're actually owning what you want to do with the data, there's different benefits. Obviously on IT, they're gaining a much better ability to govern what's going on and track what's going on within all of your business data. Obviously, data is now heavily regulated, depending on which countries you're in, what kind of information. We've got lots of privacy concerns that we have to be aware of. Just those kinds of compliance efforts are just easier when you're using a modern platform to do it. At the infrastructure level, there's also an incredible amount of innovation. Whereas storing everything in an Excel document is obviously very risky. An Excel document just doesn't scale. Sending an email of a 200 megabyte Excel document is going to cause problems for anyone, and suddenly you now try and solve for that problem. So you put it on an FTP site, and now everyone's going to try and download from the FTP site to get that data. If you're using modern data platforms like a Snowflake or a Databricks or a BigQuery, you've got this incredible ability to store near infinite data and be able to process it very quickly and very easily for commodity prices. So the bigger question would be, why wouldn't you want to have that ability within your organization? Now, on the business side, I would say that what Matt mentioned about collaboration and working remote has become really important. I myself, the team that I work with and all my customers, we're pretty much interacting like this. We're sharing data with each other via collaboration services. We're sharing, knowledge about how we're interacting with customers, and we're sharing, customer interactions who are trying our software. We can see what they're doing on the cloud, and we can guide them and help them appropriately. All of this is just, leading to better outcomes for customers or solving problems in general within your organization.
Okay, great. Matt, this question is going to be for you. So how does someone get started?
That's a good pivot, Jerry, because I think we've been a little doom and gloom here of like, what happens if you don't do it? So it can seem, again, overwhelming, but it's not. And I think really it's really just getting started, right? Walk before you run, and run before you run a marathon. Just hit the ground running and take those bite-sized chunks. Figuring out where you want to go on the journey is great. And let's look ahead and say, all right, we need to be doing X, Y, and Z in 6 months or a year or 2 years, but know that the world is going to change in those 2 years. And so I think just getting going and getting a tool that's flexible and can scale with you is really the key, so that you're not waiting on something, right? I mean, how many people have worked in an organization where you're, oh, well, once we get that tool, things will be better. Well, if you just keep going, that's never going to happen. And once that waterfall hits, the world has changed. So, working in an environment where you just get going and be agile is really, in my mind, the best way to get started. And so, just taking that first step is, the journey's going to change, and being ready to adapt as you move along is really how you get going. And so a tool like Alteryx, I found to be so flexible and easy to use, but at the beginning it can be overwhelming. And so I think it's just not getting bogged down and not getting stuck at the start. So just, and then, Steve's going to, I hope, chime in here, but I think having executive buy-in, going top down or going bottom up, but having a play either way, it can work. So, having that plan and then just putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, I think if you've ever experienced this is that, if you've got a problem and you have a resourceful team, they're going to find a solution, whether that comes down from the top or not. And so if you wanted to get started, if you're someone who's never used an Alteryx product, it's very easy to just go to alteryx.com and register for a trial, and you can start using the cloud software pretty much instantaneously. That's a great way to start. It's very, very low cost. There's really nothing to install. It's very easy to start learning the tool. But then for an organization where there's a little bit more management, or maybe it's a much larger team, it's best to identify who your early adopters are. There are going to be people who want to innovate. There are going to be people who are experiencing problems with how their data is being stored in an on-premise environment. That could be performance, where they're just waiting for too long for data to be processed. It could be one of access, where it's just slow to distribute data around your business. Or it could just be quite simply, people are working on Macs, and Alteryx is a Windows product, and they don't have access to getting Alteryx. So those are different ways in which people will try and solve the solution themselves, but you really want to support a champion to be that early adopter and take the lead on it. And that works very well. Now, if you have Alteryx already in-house and you've already got a large team, moving to a cloud platform is something new. The first thing you have to do is figure out where is your data. And so, you want people who are working with data in the cloud to start with something like Alteryx Cloud first, and let them experiment with it, find where the edges of the technology are, find the pros and cons. There are some additional things that you get with working with Alteryx Cloud versus the on-prem tool. Just like the desktop tool has got some things that are better for on-prem data. So, but with all those considerations in mind, you can be very successful, or even just have a hybrid workflow between the two.
So Steve, let's dig a little bit deeper here. So who needs Alteryx?
Well, so Alteryx is unique in that, if you boil away, the user interface, and you just get down to the core engine right at the bottom of it, it's very, very similar to an ETL engine that you would get, within an IT organization. And, most ETL engines are really designed for people who are very technical within IT. So think of database administrators, coders, developers. And that's really where Alteryx is quite different, in that we're taking that kind of technology and we're making it accessible for anyone. So if you're somebody who's on the business side, who is in a situation where you're communicating to a technical team and you're asking this technical team to automate certain steps for you within your data, you are a perfect candidate for using something like Alteryx, because you can actually self-serve those requirements using our technology. Meaning that if you know the data better than anybody else, you understand the processes and you understand the nuances of what's going on in your data sets, you really are the best person to be able to build an automation. The typical way of handing over requirements to a team and then reiterating on those requirements, I think has evolved. And just as everybody has more and more demands around data, and the business focus keeps shifting based on what's going in the market, it's just getting harder and harder to have that approach. So anyone who is self-service and has a lot of data to work with is a perfect candidate for this kind of technology. I think Matt's got some good insights as well, just based on where Cherry plays in this market.
Yeah, no, I mean, anyone that's spending a lot of time in Excel is a user, a potential user of Alteryx. And I think that it's just exactly like you said, Steve. It's easy to use, and it's intended with the business. It was designed for the business user. So you don't have to be an IT guy. You don't have to be, somebody who's really database administrator or writing SQL code. I don't know how to do any of that, but I know how to use Alteryx. It makes it simple to move things across, and this doesn't work, so let's rework it. Let's change the formula here and tweak it so that we get to where we need to be. And it's a simplified way to build these ETL flows so that you can get the data unlocked from your system and then load it into something else. You can do predictive analysis. You can do spatial analysis. Alteryx has lots of capabilities that are just built right in. And you don't have any add-on costs. It's not one of these technologies where you're being nickel and dimed and charged for each different thing you do. It's here's the platform, go run with it and see what you can figure out. And we've empowered a lot of users through the years that have gone from, I don't know anything about technology, to Alteryx pros.
Yeah, I think that's something I've really liked about working with Alteryx is the Alteryx user conference is unlike any tech conference that I've been to, because it's all the end users, people in supply chain, people in finance, tax, marketing, people, investor relations was an interesting one where they're using Alteryx to actually compile together different data sets based on what's going on, in the business to provide to analysts. So it truly is a fantastic technology that, anybody who is interested in it has the ability to pick it up and learn it and start getting value from it.
That was a good pivot to the Inspire conference. Cherry Beakert is actually a sponsor of the Alteryx Inspire conference in May. So if you're going to be there, come by our booth. If not, and you want to come, check it out. It's in Vegas at the Venetian at the end of May.
So Alteryx provides this great product. Where does Cherry Beakert come in?
So Cherry Beakert is a certified reseller of Alteryx. We've been a value-added reseller and partner for years. So we can sell you the software, but more importantly, we can help you get started. So rather than downloading the software and maybe being a little overwhelmed, we can just get that ball rolling for you. So we do services, we do training, and just help people become data-driven. Help them solve your own problems and become that data analyst. That you still do your own job. You still be a business user. You can still be in marketing. You still be in finance. But we all use data. This just makes it a lot easier. And set it and forget it.
Do you have any final thoughts on how to get started? Any tips?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the first thing is work backwards from your company goals. So either you may have some challenges and maybe customers are unhappy, or you're trying to figure out how to grow your business, or you're trying to find just areas maybe where you're not actually tracking. So start with a goal in mind. Then work backwards from that. How do you then institute an analytics function that supports that goal? And then find your champions, find the people internally who want to be part of some kind of innovation and who want to lead that, and really empower them and support them to be able to deliver on something like this. I think it takes a village to make something like this happen. It's much easier when you have alignment from, your leadership, your middle management, and then, all of your team right the way through.
Matt, Steve, thank you for joining us today. I thought this discussion was great. Today's information was very insightful, and I think it's going to help a lot of people get started on their analytics journey. And to learn more about Cherry Beakert's digital advisory practice, please visit cbh.com/digital. And to learn more about Alteryx, go to alteryx.com.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Jerry.
Yeah, thanks everybody.